I like to rant. Ranting is fun. It also cleanses the soul.
Detroit is to be one of the best sports cities in the country, if not the best.
Surely Javi can't be as bad this year as he was last year. Surely that can't be the case.
One of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense, like in the modern era of baseball. Just absolutely atrocious. He is a piece to the puzzle. He is not the entire puzzle.
Right.
He's a puzzle piece, but he is not the entire puzzle.
This is the Michigan and Trumbull podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Giaconis. Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. I'm Alex Freeman, joined as always by Sell the Team Chris, Luke Giaconis. Luke, how's it going? How's life? Yeah, outside the Tigers. I don't know that we want to ask you how your Tigers life is going quite yet. We'll get there when it's your time to rant.
Yeah, my Tigers life is not great. Not great at all. But my personal life, not bad. It's very, very, very hot right now down in Florida. Like, for those who are familiar with the area, the state, this time of year, it's hot. Everybody knows that. But like, usually the real dead months where you feel like you walk outside and melt to a popsicle, is that July and then like August and then September. Also, the seasons never change in Florida, so it was a complete culture shock for me when I moved down here from the Chicago area because we have our regular seasons there. Some seasons stay longer than others. Looking at you, winter. But in Florida, it's like usually May to October is hot and it's just brutal, and then you get like a couple of weeks like in November and December, and then January, February, March are kind of a coin toss. More often than not, it's a little cooler. But right now, this is like, it's only the second week of June, maybe moving on to week 3 around there, the mid-June part, and it feels like we're at the end of August. It is hot. You walk outside, you just start sweating. Even you get out of the shower, you start sweating. You got to jump right back in. I just shower 24/7, and my water bill is through the roof.
I hear you. It's similarly in New York. It is hit that season where you're either going out to an appointment or you're showering. Those are kind of the two steps of the day as you go through, and add in there, the just the dirtiness of the subways, and you're pretty much never clean until the second you step out of the shower. Probably time to get back in.
It's so funny. I don't think we ever really talked about it, but when I lived in Chicago for a little over a year, and I grew up 45 to an hour outside of the city like my entire life. But when I was living there, like, in this case, the L, it's not a pleasant place. I wouldn't propose to someone. I wouldn't take someone on a fancy rendezvous to the L, go up to the north side on the red line. But there was something just even more grungier and gross about a New York subway.
Yeah.
Like, Chicago's not great. I'm not saying it's great by any means, but New York almost, I think it's just like that stigma. It's like, this is a New York subway. I mean, case in point, to be fair, I don't know if I said this on the show, but I think I told you personally off the show. One day, we were driving out, or we were on the subway heading out to Battery Park to go to the 9/11 memorial, which was brilliantly heartbreaking and powerful, and I could do a whole show about why I thought that was a terrific thing and just so brutal, but also beautiful at the same time. A lot of mixed feelings there. But anyways, on our way out to the museum, almost got puked on by a man who was coming off, it looked like his high of cocaine. So, New York, baby. The Big Apple.
Classic stuff. Speaking of disgusting, that's how I'm going to cue you up for your rant, Luke, because I think that we can't really get into anything with the Detroit Tigers until we've opened the cork with the rant. Just to timestamp this for folks, we are recording on Thursday, before the Tigers have taken the field against the Minnesota Twins for the first game of that series. So by the time this ends, you will know the results of the Minnesota series, but that's where we're sitting. We're sitting coming off of the 1-2 effort against the Braves in terms of series results, and in the midst of a massive losing skid. That's what I'll say. But it's time for a Luke rant.
I wish we would have maybe just the intro should have been you just playing that music, like Let Me Go. It's like an actor's got to get prepped for the scene, so to speak. Not that there's any acting that's going on here. It's just a lot of just frustration. Look, I'm going to just get right into it here. And I tweeted this out, I think 4 or 5 days ago from the Twitter account. And this is an ongoing joke, just a peek behind the curtain between myself and Alex and some of our other friends. Anyone who's been following our show now for a while knows that probably almost to like a sociopathic level, when the Tigers win, my days are great. When they lose, they're just worse. And you might say to yourself, Luke, you're 28 years old. Why do you care so much about a baseball team that literally has zero effect on your life and or cares about you at all? Completely fair. Completely fair. But for me, it's just a sick thing. I'm one of those people in life, whether it's sports, movies, friends, and family. When I love you, I love you. You're part of my tribe for life, till death do us part, so to speak. When I hate you and you're on my enemies list, I don't want to say you're dead to me, but you're pretty close. And there's not many things or people, to be fair, that are on that list. I like to think for the most part, I'm a pretty up and lovey guy and accepting of all. But push me, you'll get on that list. The Detroit Tigers are so very close to being put on that exclusive list that you do not want to be on, a shit list, for lack of a better term. I don't know, and Alex and I have not talked about this at all, really, other than he can probably just kind of pick up on my mood, maybe just via some texts. I don't know how much longer I can do this, and I'm serious. I'm not having fun. I'm not enjoying it. It feels like work. I don't get any joy. I don't get any happiness. And obviously, this all stems from the losing streak and just the overall rate of play that's been this season. But realistically, if you even take the last couple of weeks out of it, this isn't just something that's been building for me, like I said, since, Memorial Day weekend. This has been something for me that has been building for season after season after season. There is nothing changing with this team. And I'm sorry, but I refuse to believe otherwise. You can throw out all the bullshit statistics that they walk more than they did a year ago. Their pitchers have cut down on walks, which Scott Harris did. We'll get to him in a second. But if you look at this team on a surface level from the last time they had a winning season, let's just say winning, that was 2016. I'm not even going to talk about getting to the playoffs. It's almost 10 years from now. 10 years ago, I should say. On a surface level, if you look at this team from where they're at from 2017 to where they are in 2023, they're the same. They're the exact same team, and you cannot convince me otherwise. There may be some different names on the back of the jerseys. There may be a couple of young and stud up-and-coming prospects, but it's the same shit, different toilet. You have, in my opinion, the worst owner in professional sports with Chris Illitch. He is absentee. He is negligent. I'm sorry, the man is a fucking moron. He really is. He is a complete buffoon. You cannot convince me of anything else. He doesn't know how to do anything with the sport of baseball. He is a complete imbecile and needs to sell the team. And if he doesn't want to own the team, he needs to give it off to someone who actually gives a shit about winning, because it's clear that this man has absolutely no regard, no intent on ever bringing a championship to the city of Detroit. He is a goddamn buffoon, and he is a disgrace to all of humanity. All of humanity. The guy is a complete imbecile. On top of that, Scott Harris, who, yes, jury is still out. Jury is still out, admittedly, on Scott. He's not even been with us a full year. But on top of that, the comments he made recently, there was some event that happened earlier in the week that he was there, AJ Hinch was there, Matt Shepard, I think Simo, a couple of the players. He didn't speak much, and there's probably a reason why. But the comments he did make, let me read you some of the things that he's proud of, that he's seeing improvements and progress in about this team. Let me read this to you real quick here. I want to make sure I have everything correct. I don't want to misspeak. And this was reported by Evan Petzold. Scott Harris highlights the progress from the Tigers this season. A 16-11 record in May. I'll give him that. That was a good month of baseball. Good job, Scott. We've started to take control of the strike zone in this organization, from 20th in pitcher walks to fourth right now, from 29th in batter walks to 8th right now. dynamic defenders. Scott Harris said, the progress in my job, I have to look under the hood. I have to look at the process behind what we're doing and the outcomes. Those are some real signs of progress that are ultimately going to lead to a brighter future here in Detroit. I'm sorry, Scott. I'm sorry. I know you're new. I know you're new. But you're going to tell fans who haven't seen a winning product in baseball since 2016 that you are actually excited about progress, that your pitchers aren't walking as many people, that your batters are walking more? It's normal baseball. The other team should be doing that if they're somewhat competent. You're excited about that? That's progress to you, you idiot? I mean, I know he can only deal with the goods that he was given from the previous tenure of Al Avila, and we'll get to him in a moment too, because you see what we did was last year we got rid of Tweedledee. Now we need to get rid of Tweedle Dumbass, and that's Chris Illitch. But let's talk about Tweedledee for just a second, if we may. He was on a podcast that Todd Frazier hosted recently, where it was his first public comments, from my understanding, about his since he's been fired. He said that his two biggest trades. Let me just read here. I had it pulled up. Let me read here real quick. I just want to make sure I have everything correct. He'd said that his two biggest trades that he regretted, or moves that he regretted, were the Austin Meadows for Isaac Paredes, and we have talked about that at nauseum. We don't need to go into any more what Austin's going through. That needs to be addressed off the field, and we hope he gets better soon. But he said that he also, in hindsight, looking back, that the Astros trade he thought wasn't as bad when he got some of those prospects, that it wasn't that bad of a deal. This is who, let's just refresh. Let's go back to 2017. This is who the Tigers got for Justin Verlander when they made the deal in August of 2017. The Tigers received three prospects: Franklin Perez, who is just an injury-prone man; Daz Cameron, who had a very, very mediocre stint with the Tigers; and the only person who remains from that trade is Jake Rogers. Now, I'm going to give a semi-credit to Jake Rogers. He's actually proving to be a halfway reliable, I would say, backup catcher. I don't think he's going to be the next Pudge Rodriguez, Yadier Molina, Johnny Bench, but as a catcher who plays somewhat halfway decent defense and can hit you some home runs when you need it, Jake Rogers is the guy. Although I did see a stat that Jake, I think, every time he's hit a home run this season, I think the Tigers are 0-7 or 0-9 in games he's hit home runs this year. I think it's 0-7, but dating back to last season, it's 0-9. So I guess what we really need to happen is we need to stop asking Jake Rogers to hit home runs, and then maybe they'll win more consistently. But that Al Avila, in his mind, I feel like he just doesn't grasp reality. He doesn't grasp the fact of all of his shortcomings. But I'm not going to really go in on Al anymore. We've done that for the last 3 years we've had this show, and he's gone. Let's worry about the present. And the present is this. These are some of the issues that are plaguing the Tigers, and I don't see these issues going away anytime soon. I really don't. This is what I wrote down. So from last time we did a show, or I should say from last May to now, they are 1-11 in the month of June. The June swoon is alive and real, folks. This is, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. Now, to be fair, they are through the toughest part of their schedule in the month of June. They've already played the Diamondbacks. They've already played the Braves. They played at that point in time a kind of banged up White Sox and Phillies teams, but they got decimated by those guys. Now they're starting to get hot. At least it looks like the Phillies are coming to kind of like the Phillies of last year. Scott Harris isn't answering questions, so I think that's a big red flag right there. I mean, someone has to take accountability at some point. You can't just leave it to AJ every night to do a post game on Bally. I mean, there's other issues outside of what AJ Hinch is doing. And to be fair, although I went in on AJ earlier in the season, the issues I have with him really aren't his fault, and I acknowledge that. It all starts with Scott Harris, but Chris Illitch at the top. Mm-hmm. He's the owner who takes zero accountability, and it's just the facts. That is the absolute facts. The man is a ghost. Nobody has seen him. He really, I mean, he's just absolutely completely checked out from this team, and it's just frustrating beyond all hell. Another thing I'm going to say, too, is I think there's a real chance that at the end of the season, AJ Hinch walks. I really do. I could be wrong. Hope I'm wrong, because I do think AJ Hinch is the best option the Tigers have right now. But I fear that if AJ Hinch walks, Chris Fetter walks, Jordan Lombard walks, this whole staff of guys starts to walk, and then you're really like, now what do we do? Now who do we bring? I mean, I'm not saying whoever they could bring in would just be completely a failure. You got to give them a fair shake. But I mean, you have a good manager right now in AJ Hinch. You have a great pitching coach in Chris Fetter. They work well together. That's an issue. We're going to talk about something as well here for a second. I'm sorry, I'm just going in right now. So I hope I'm not. I'm really taking it all. You want to get in a word here?
No, keep going.
Okay. So another issue too, and this is something you have talked about and I have talked about a lot these last couple of seasons. The Tigers are not the New York Yankees. They are not the Boston Red Sox, the LA Dodgers, the Atlanta Braves, or people where stars want to flock to that market. The Tigers, and I know sports is like this in general, but they really are a what have you done for me lately? What free agent in their right mind would want to come to Detroit? Why would you want to come to Detroit, the Tigers specifically, when there's a chance that this team is worse than the 2022 team? I don't think that's going to happen, but there's a chance. They sure as shit, unless something changes like tonight. They're not just going to automatically turn around and be like a team that wins 15 games in a row and is back in the division. And don't even get me started, because we talk about it all the time, about all they have to do right now is play halfway competent baseball, and you would be winning the AL Central. It's not that hard. It really isn't that hard to just tread water. Now, I will give them credit. They have a ton of injuries, and I think you can only use that card for so long. It's beyond frustrating that for the second year in a row, the same, if not more, the same amount, if not more amount of injuries have piled up and are just now plaguing this team relentlessly. It's sickening me. There's a couple other things though. There's a couple of things. This team right now has no starting pitching, and obviously that goes hand in hand with the current injuries that are hitting the team. But it's just brutal. I mean, right now they're out of their 5 stars. I think 2 out of their 5 starts they're doing bullpen days. I mean, you're essentially right now relying on Joey Wentz, Michael Lorenzen, and then Matthew Boyd and Reese Olson, but he's got a very short leash because he's only started 3 games in the majors. You know, it's frustrating. And another thing too is from the fan side, and why I think I'm getting so just over it. It's all just such a jumbled mess. I don't even know where you begin. I don't even know
Mhm.
where you go to fix this. And here's the worst part about it too. The one thing that is fun, that is kind of keeping me checked into this team a little bit, is going away at the end of this season. And that one thing is Miguel Cabrera. He is right now the one. Even if you hate the Tigers and you haven't watched a game for years, but if you like them back in the day when they were good and you just don't support this current regime, which I don't blame you, most people, the common Tigers fan, I feel like, hey, Miggy's got an at bat. Let me watch this, see what he's doing here. Oh, it's his last season. I'm going to go to a game this season because I want to say I saw Miguel Cabrera play one last time before he hung it up. But guess what? Come October 1st, when you and I say goodbye to him and thousands of fans say goodbye to him at Comerica, that reason is gone. It's absolutely gone. The Miggy magic is gone. It's over. It's time to move on. And you hope Riley Green can take that mantle. But as much as I love Riley Green, we haven't seen enough from him. He didn't
Mhm.
play a full season healthy. He started on the IL last season. We have heard hits on when he is coming back this season. So in Detroit right now, it is a shit show. It is a complete and utter dumpster fire of a shit show. And I guess what I bring this all back to on this long-winded, maybe incoherent rant and vent session for me is none of this is fun anymore. After everything I just described, I feel like it's pretty like down the middle. It's not coming from a biased standpoint, maybe other than my shots at Chris Illitch, but still, I mean, come on. Can you blame me? The man's track record speaks for himself. Nothing about Tigers baseball right now screams fun. And for that, I just don't care anymore. I'm going to say one last thing and then I'm going to shut up, I promise. The Tigers don't owe me anything. I acknowledge that. Who am I? I'm literally a nobody when it comes to fandom. There's so many other people out there that are in the same shoes I am. We're nobodies. I get that. What the Tigers need to start worrying about, though, as an organization, is when you lose not specifically me, but fans like me who will
Mhm.
who will support this team and will come watch you play in September or watch your games on MLB TV in September when you're 27 games under 500 and battling the Royals for fourth place. When those type of fans start to say, "I'm done. I got nothing left to give. I got nothing left to watch." That's where I think you run into issues. And the passion is there from the fan base. We just saw Oakland pack the stadium, which we should talk about here in a little bit. I would love to see the Tigers fan base do something like that. Obviously, I don't think their situation is as bad as Oakland, and also the Oakland situation is them literally about leaving Oakland as well. Whereas, the Tigers are going to be in Detroit, I would assume, for the remainder of time. Uh, it's just not fun. None of this is fun, and I take it back to it's not so much about the losing streak. It's not so much about the June swoon. It's just everything, man. None of this is fun anymore. Anyone who can honestly sit there and watch these games and say they're having fun, I commend you, and I think we need to do a brain study on you because you are a truly, unbeatable and unstoppable human being in life because for me, I'm checking out. I'm checking out, and I'm not saying I'm checking out. Like I'm never gonna watch a game again. I'm not doing that bit or that shtick right now, but I'm just saying it's just not fun anymore. There's nothing enticing. There's nothing exciting. I have to watch. I don't have to, but I'll watch the Tigers tonight. Throw out Matthew Boyd. You know, I love Matthew Boyd, but come on, he's not a long-term solution. I have to watch them do 2 bullpen days and the next 4 games, and this is year 8, and there just seems to be no signs of it changing anytime soon. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope one day we can rewind the clocks and look at this rant and go, God, that guy was a loudmouth idiot. He was completely wrong about everything. I truly hope that happens. And if that happens, I will treat Chris Illitch and Scott Harris to a steak dinner of their choosing. But until that time comes, until I'm paying that bill, I think myself and a lot of Tigers fans are just done. They're done. And you know, it sucks. It sucks to when you love something so much that just is no longer fun to enjoy. Maybe it's getting older, maybe it's getting a little bit wiser, maybe it's none of those things. Maybe it's just coming to grips with the thing you love most just didn't love you back. But it just sucks. It just sucks, and it's not very fun anymore to be a Tigers fan. And yeah, that's all I got.
Couldn't agree with you more, Luke. And one thing that I was thinking about is obviously you're a Bears fan. I'm a Lions fan. The Bears have had their ups and downs. The Lions have been mostly down since they won a championship in 1957. And I worry that that's where the Tigers are headed, into that kind of lengthy drought. And if we remember, it's been since 1984 since they won a World Series, and they've been there. Now the Lions are among the handful of teams that have never been to a Super Bowl. But I think about when thinking about where this Tigers team is, I've been thinking a lot about the Lions and the hope and excitement that many Lions fans have for this upcoming season. In that this last year, it really felt like for the first time that the franchise perhaps turned a corner into the ability to actually compete for the NFC North, to actually make a playoff run, to actually go beyond where they've gone in the past. And it comes down to something that you touched on in that rant, which is Al Avila and his like looking back on rose-colored glasses on his trades. And no, Al, you lost every trade you made.
Just about.
And where it felt like the Lions actually turned it around. One, it was after they finally fired Matt Millen as the GM of that team. And that sort of regime change kind of kicked things off. And then it was the Matthew Stafford trade that really, really sparked it, it feels like, because the trade is now actually complete. All of the draft picks and what have you have been given. Mm-hmm. So for Matthew Stafford, the Detroit Lions received Jared Goff, Ifeatu Melifonwu, Jamison Williams, Josh Paschal, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporte, Broderick Martin.
Yeah.
A massive haul of young talent and a veteran game manager quarterback. Give up a generational talent, which I think Matthew Stafford is, but receive 8 pieces to a really good team. None of those guys are going to win you a championship in their isolation. You don't just add Jared Goff to a random roster and win the Super Bowl. Jared Goff can win you a Super Bowl, I think. He can manage your team if you put the right talent around him. It can happen. And that's what the Lions have going for them going into this season. We also have in Detroit a head coach that many, many fans would run through a brick wall for, especially after Hard Knocks.
Did you see they might do a season 2 Hard Knocks with the Lions for real?
Love. They absolutely should. That coaching staff is insane, and they're in the best way.
Yep.
And none of that energy exists in the Tigers bullpen, or the Tigers dugout, clubhouse.
Organization as a whole, yeah.
Yeah, overall, it's just not there.
Yeah.
We don't have, and this is not a knock on AJ Hinch. I think AJ Hinch, I agree, is the right manager for this team to get us to the next level. But he's not Dan Campbell. He's not going out into press conferences and getting all of us fired up, because there's nothing to get us fired up about.
Yeah.
And Dan Campbell's first few press conferences, no one else had bought into the Lions yet except Dan Campbell. And so he came off as an absolute weirdo and a maniac.
Lunatic.
Not in a great way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the team started to win more games than they should. And then we all went, okay, hang on. Now I'm here for it all the time. But we don't have that with AJ Hinch.
No.
We don't have that with Scott Harris. We don't have a Matthew Stafford type piece to move for a haul like this.
Yeah.
Nor do I. They're so far into this thing, rebuild wise. I want them to just go buy a good team.
Who does that fall on?
Sell the team, Chris.
Yeah. So he's never going to do it. He's not going to do it. It goes back to what I just said a moment ago. And those are some really good points. There's a great comparison between the Lions and the Tigers. Because I think that it is night and day. It is night and day with the excitement level. I'm not a Lions fan, but I'm around a lot of Detroit sports fans for half my year, and you can just feel this buzz right now for the Lions. Now, I have said in the past, temper your expectations just a little bit, Lions fans. I don't want you guys to get too excited, but there definitely is a hype and a buzz that should 100% be there. And that hype and buzz does not even nearly exist with the Tigers. And it is funny looking at AJ Hinch. And I don't need AJ Hinch to go out in a press conference like Dan Campbell said and say we're going to eat your kneecaps and we're going to F you up and all this other stuff. I don't need him to do that. But what was the one big thing AJ Hinch said? It was in his first season when they were a pretty fun team through the summer of 21. I might be paraphrasing here. It said something along the lines of like, well, we're going to make Detroit a place where players are going to want to come and play for us. And if you don't want to play for us, we're going to beat you. Wrong. And I like that idea of AJ, being a little sharp with the tongue, being a little fresh, throwing some shots. I love that. But you just haven't backed it up at all. Spencer Torkelson, I think he said it was either in spring training or in a game earlier in the season. He said, we rake. Well, none of you rake, Spence. None of you. And Spence, I know you had the walk-off and the big home runs these last couple of games, but you, sir, of anyone, you don't rake. You don't. And I'm not going to call him a bust yet. I'm not. But his clock is, as far as I'm concerned, is just about out of him being, not saying an overall bust of a major league player, but being this big first-round draft pick that changes your franchise and goes out there and smacks 40 to 50 home runs a season after season after season. We're just about at time's up.
Yeah, he's not the guy.
In that regard.
He's not the guy.
He's not going to be that guy. I'm not saying he can't be a guy. He's just not going to be that big 40 home run driving 120 RBIs guy like prime Miggy. Like, we're about at the point where we're saying, yeah, that ship has sailed. Now let's find a new recreation of what he will be.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
thing
thing with this entire roster is none of them are the guy.
Mhm,
There's
mhm,
not a franchise player on this roster currently. Miguel Cabrera
mhm,
was. Miguel Cabrera
mhm.
was the franchise guy.
Absolutely.
Big
Absolutely.
power hitter, was going to get you, was exactly who you wanted to come up to bat in the bottom of the
Mhm.
ninth,
Yep.
every single time. And he's not supposed to be the guy right now, but he was the
Mhm.
guy. We don't have the guy. We have Dennis Rodman in Javi Baez. We probably have Scottie Pippen in Riley Green, but
Yeah.
we don't have Michael Jordan.
No.
We don't have that
No.
guy. We don't
We
have,
got Michael Lorenzen.
yeah, yeah. And
That's who
boy, let
we've
me
got.
tell you, that's how you win 6 championships is
I don't think they're making a Last Dance documentary about Michael Lorenzen with all due respect to Michael. Um, you're right. They don't.
I
And
would take
yeah,
Michael Jordan on this team at this point.
you know, it's such a it is frustrating. And I know I ranted, so I'm not going to rehash all that. Uh, all that word vomit, but I don't know how you can call yourself a fan and be okay with this. I know fans are going to fan the way you want to fan. That's great. But if even if you're a casual fan, isn't it tiresome to every year when you periodically look at the standings or the Tigers record, yep, they're shitty again. All right, well, what else is going on? Like, it's the same thing time after time. This team has not had a winning season in 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
This team has not been to a playoff game in almost 10 years. I think next to the Angels, they have the longest postseason drought. Does no one think that that is an issue that needs to be rectified immediately? Like now? And I think that, and I've seen a lot of tweets too, a lot of things that are going under the radar. That's the big issue with the team. I think the way the Tigers develop players in the minors is wrong. That's what I'm saying. Where I think there are so many things that there are way more issues than there are solutions with this team that I don't even know where you begin. I tweeted it out the
Mm-hmm.
other day, and I kind of mean it. I know I just said it needs to be fixed immediately, but there's a part of it that's like, you know what? Blow it up. Blow the whole thing up. Let Scott Harris get into the lab, do what he wants to do the way he wants to do it, and pray to God that rather than having to go through another 5 to 8 years of the baseball shit that we've been seeing, maybe he can figure out a solution in 2 to 3. Pray, you know. But there's a part of it, someone that, let him blow it up when Miggy's off the books and Scope is gone next season and Erod probably walks if he's not traded. You'll have Javi's contract lingering unless he decides to opt out. Please, Javi, please opt out. Please do it. Other than that,
Every time I talk to a Cubs fan, I say, you guys can have him back whenever you want.
yeah, take him, take him, take him. And it's not. And again, it's in terms of the offense. It's not just Javi Baez's fault. We said a lot last season. It's like, when you look back at 2022, nobody was like, well, if Jonathan Scope just would have hit like Jonathan Scope, the Tigers' offense would have been fine. No, no. The entire offense as a whole was anemic. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with the 2023 Tigers offense. Yes, they are better than the 2022 team. I will give them that. But what is that saying? You won 66 games in 2022. Is that the bar that we're settling for? It's so interesting being on Twitter, and I think so many Tiger fans, myself included, would honestly be over the moon if this team could just barely win some games. If they could barely get to a 500 record,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if they could win 81 games. Sorry, I had to think of the math for a second in my head. If they could win 81 games, I think so many fans, myself included, would be like, finally! It'd be like the scene
Yeah.
at the end of Rocky 4 when he's like training on the mountain to fight Drago. You'd let out like a victory scream. You really would. That's the Tigers' mindset. You go on Twitter or you watch other teams play. We just watched the Braves come to town. That is a team that knows how to win. They take advantage of every miscue, every opportunity, and they cash it in. The Diamondbacks are the same way. Good for the Diamondbacks and that fan base. That is going to be a fun team to watch for
Every
many
time
seasons to
Kerry
come.
Carpenter can't hold on to a ball,
Right.
they are going to find a way to score.
Yeah, I like going back to Scott Harris, the defense is strong or whatever. Are you kidding me? In the same inning, in that game one of the doubleheader against the Braves, you had Kerry Carpenter make an error and Nick Maton make an error. It's like the defense. I don't know the exact numbers, but this is not a lights out defense by any means. I still have to hold my breath every time a ball is hit to Javi Baez at shortstop. He's either going to skip it in the dirt or he's going to somehow find a way to throw it to forward field. I'm convinced the man is not reliable at short. Better than last year, I'll give him that. But I still am like, oh my god, is he gonna make it? And he made it. Okay, great. I've never seen a guy sometimes luck his way through the position like Javi Baez has done it short. Really, it's just there are far too many problems and not nearly enough solutions with the Detroit Tigers organization. I'm not even going to say the team anymore. It's the organization as a whole. It starts at the top with Chris Illitch. I'm giving Scott Harris a semi pass. I hated his comments he made. I hated the fact that he did nothing coming into the 23 season, but I'm going to give him a slight pass because he is the new guy. He hasn't even been here for a full year. But beyond that, they're just a mess. And I want to give myself optimism about Holt Keith and Chase Young and Jackson Jobe and Parker Meadows and Justin Henry Malloy. But even when I think about those guys, then I just start to think back when we got excited when, oh my God, Casey Mize is coming to pitch. Tarik Skubal's making his debut. Spencer Torkelson's going to start the team in 2022. And how have all those guys done? The guys that were even bigger prospects than the Malloys and the Parker Meadows. How have those guys fared? Well, Casey Mize is yet to pitch a full season. Same with Tarik Skubal. Spencer Torkelson, damn near a bust at this point. Riley Green can't stay healthy. Matt Manning can't stay healthy. The list goes on and on. It's just it's this entire organization is tragic, and it just is never, in my opinion, going to get any better until Chris Illitch and the Illitch family sell this team. And if you're not going to sell it, open up the checkbook. Last time I looked, aren't the Illiches worth like 3 billion? Like,
Yep.
come on, you can't spend a little money to bring in some star talent, some star power.
A lot of money in pizza.
Yeah, their pizza's not that great either, and I don't care. I'm going full heel today on the Illiches. Yeah.
Okay, Luke.
4 billion. 4 billion. Sorry, I know we did the transition. I'm not supposed to be ranting anymore, but 4 billion. That's what the Illiches are worth. You can't bring in anyone. We got to bring in Tyler Nevin. We get Tyler Nevin for 4 billion. Oh wow, great. Jason Shreve, awesome. Thanks a lot, Chris. Hope you choke on a Little Caesars hot and ready to go. But then you regurgitate it up so you keep on living. I'm not that much of a psychopath, but I do not like Chris Illitch. I think I made my points clear there.
Okay, on the category of the defense is better, how many players on the roster or that have been on the roster this season have a fielding wins above replacement that is positive?
I'm gonna say 0.
It's a little higher than 0.
1.
A little higher than that. It is single digits though.
I'm gonna say 4.
6 is the total
Okay.
is the total answer. Who has the highest wins above replacement for fielding
Defensively. Let's go Zach McKinstry.
Oh man, he's not even.
Is that even one of the 6?
No.
He's like one of the guys that's actually halfway okay this season that people aren't really like that pissed with.
He's Zach McKinstry's minus 0.1.
Okay. Positive defensive war. All right, let's see here.
The answer
I'll go
may surprise you.
Jonathan Scope.
He is positive, but he's not the top. He's 0.3.
Javi Baez.
Javier Baez, Mr. Error himself.
Mr. Dirtball himself.
The guy who committed the most errors at his